Hello my friends, how are you doing? Today I want to talk about 35mm photography, but especially also about the Viltrox 35mm 1.8. Now I bought this with my own money and it's a cheap lens for full frame that is only 200 bucks. And this is actually my first 35mm and I have to say I really love that kind of photography. But this lens is not that great, to be honest, and this is also why I really love it. So it's a cheap lens. This lens has less texture, less sharpness. It is a little bit slower with the focusing. You have to, often you're not sure if you really get the sharp picture or not. Also, if you photograph at 1.8, you get a really strong vignette in your image. But this is what I like about that, because when I put this on my Sony a7 III, it's like looking through an old camera. It's really beautiful. I use this almost always in 1.8. You have a very shallow depth of field, and this is the beautiful thing about that. So with this lens, I specifically went out there and immediately again found my love for minimalist abstract photography. And the cool thing about the shallow depth of field, but also about the vignette, also about this kind of organic, warm quality you get from this lens that is not as precise as an expensive quality lens, is that it makes the picture in a certain way animated. I really like that. And through the shallow depth of field, and of course this is what you get with any kind of 1.8 lens, but I just like the quality of this one. But let's talk about it in general. When you have, for example, you find a couple of pipes on the ground and they look interesting, and you would take a photo with a higher f-stop, let's say 5, everything is sharp in the image, it's just a pile of pipes at that moment. But then when you have the shallow depth of field and a lot of stuff is blurry and you only set the focus on your subject, or sometimes I purposely set the focus on something that is not the subject, this introduces a story to that, because suddenly that part of the image becomes the focus, but also the image becomes reduced. But also the image has a dimension, a perspective, a way to look at things that we don't see usually with our eyes. And that makes it really, really interesting, because at that point it goes from, oh, there is a pile of pipes, to why are these pipes there and what is their story? So from that point on, you feel connected to that thing, whatever it is, pipes, garbage, a door handle, any kind of thing, maybe just a part of the wall of a building, and you connect to that. And that space, that part that is sharp, suddenly becomes animated, it becomes purposeful, it becomes alive, it becomes connected to you, because you feel through that depth of field, through that purpose that has been applied to that image, it turns into a story. It wants to tell you something. There's a reason why it has been photographed like that. And this is what I find amazing about that, because at that moment, you can take any kind of thing you find out there. I go just for a walk in the surrounding of my home and I find every time amazing things, no matter how small they are, no matter how strange or normal they are. With the lens, with the shallow depth of field, with the kind of strange quality you get from this lens, it turns into a beautiful and interesting story, and it transforms the world around you into a more artistic perspective. And you feel like you actually see the world with the eyes of not just the camera, but the artistic purpose in a camera or with a camera. So that is really amazing. Now, as much as I like this lens, as I said, it's a little bit slow with the focus. I'm not always sure the picture is going to be sharp, so I'm not sure this is good for quick street photography, although I haven't tried it for that. What I would suggest to you, if you want to get this for street photography, is that you set it to continuous focus and also to a high exposure rate, so that you get at least one of these pictures that is going to be sharp. And also the good thing about high exposure rate is that you have multiple photos, and the progression that's happening in the street photos when people are moving, when things are happening, is that one of these pictures is always going to be better than the other. So you are more certain to capture something that is interesting for you, especially if you have a camera like the Sony a7 III, where you can go into silent mode and the camera makes no sound whatsoever. So nobody is the wiser. You actually just took 30 photos. Really amazing. I can at the same time really suggest this lens because it's very affordable. It's a good entry point into 35mm photography. It's not the highest quality, but still, I'm in love with this. There we go. Have a nice day.